Hello everybody, E here. Welcome back to another Stephen King review. If you're confused, don't worry. I have not done these reviews yet. I am working through the back catalog, which you're probably thinking of if you think, hasn't he already reviewed this? It's because I've done my Thursday Theorist series. That is spoiler heavy. These reviews are not. But today, we are talking about Nightmares and Dreamscapes, which is a huge chunk of a collection. I'm going to go through each and every story, tell you what I think about it. It's 800 pages long, over 800 pages, and I believe it has the longest list of stories of any of his collections. It's also his longest collection to date. But yeah, we're going to jump right into the review of each story. I am going to be looking down at the book, going through this. It is also a big, heavy one. I almost just, wrote it all out and did it that way, but it's easier. Double working myself? Whatever. Anyway, so let's jump into it. Dolans Cadillac is a rather long story. It's more of a novelette or novella. It is about a man who goes after I believe it's a mob boss, and he comes up with one of the most convoluted and lengthy processes to get revenge. I believe the man was either I can't remember. Is it he murdered the guy's wife, or his wife left him for the other guy? I can't remember, but it was made into a movie with Christian Slater, I believe. I don't remember too much about the movie. I've only seen it once. There's a lot of adaptations for the stories in this book, but most of them are dollar babies. If you don't know what those are, King sells the rights to make it to debut film, lesser known filmmakers for $1. He sells them the rights. The only thing is King has to approve the showing of the movie whenever it is shown. I guess that's the only stipulation. There might be more. But with this story, I enjoyed it. Dolans Cadillac was not a dollar baby. It was an actual, a larger budget film. I like this story all right, but one of the main threads of this collection for me is everything is pretty much just all right. I have 2 favorite stories in here, and all the rest of them I would give probably about 3 stars. I think the way the main character goes about his revenge is, like I said, convoluted and a little overdone, but it's a fun enough read. I think it's about it's a 56-page story. It goes on, I feel, way too long, and a lot of these do. But moving on, the end of the whole mess is one of the funner stories, the way you watch the character devolve throughout the writing process. It's a unique stylistic experiment from King. I enjoy the story for what it is, but the final last lines are heartbreaking once you understand what's going on and what is happening to this poor character. I did find one review of this that was hilarious, complaining about all of the misspellings, talk about having no sense of context whatsoever. But yeah, it's an okay story. It's another one I would give 3 stars to. Next one, Suffer the Little Children, actually comes into there's another story like this later on in the collection about people seeing things that may or may not be real. This is about a teacher who suspects that the children that she teaches are creatures, and I don't want to go any farther than that. She does retaliate, and then the story ends on a very down note. It's a rather horrifying story because it deals with violence against children, and it is another story of King's that deals with shooting violence in schools, but it's not a school shooter scenario like in Rage. So maybe that's why he keeps this one around and not the other one. I don't know, but either way, it's gun violence in schools. So next we have The Night Flyer, which is one of my favorite stories in the collection. This one and the next one. Each one of the, I don't know that each one of them, but there are several stories in here that are like twinners, because you have Night Flyer followed by Popsy, and they're both vampire stories. We're going to talk about Popsy next, but the Night Flyer is referenced a lot. Dawes, the reporter for, what is it, Inside View, something like that. I can never remember. I'm sure Pat will be down there correcting me, and that's fine. I appreciate it when you do that. But I think it's Inside Edition or Inside View, something like that. It's the tabloid in the Stephen King universe, and it's mentioned a lot. And so is the main character. He pops up anytime King talks about tabloids. He uses that tabloid specifically, and it is about a vampire that flies around and a tabloid journalist who follows around the vampire, and it has a really, really cool scene in the men's room, if you know what I'm talking about. I've always wondered about stuff like that, and to see King use that in the story, if you're drinking blood, what are you going to be expelling when you're drinking it? I thought that was very, very cool. Next up, we have Popsy, which is my second favorite. These are really the only two stories that I love in here. I like the actiony, later half of the story. I also like that it's about someone getting a comeuppance for kidnapping a child. I'm a big fan of those types of stories, which is funny because I don't like vampires. I think they're overdone. They're everywhere, man. Ever since Dracula, people have been, just milking vampires for all they're worth, but King lends his own spin. I'm also a big fan of Salem's Lot, so I guess I like vampires when either King does them or when I feel they are done right, and they are more of a creature, a monster, than they are any type of love interest or anything like that. Next up is It Grows on You, which is kind of a twinner for Rose Red, or The Diary of Ellen Rimbauer, which was not written by Stephen King. People have asked me why I haven't reviewed that one and why I haven't added it to the Thursday Theorist. That's why, because he didn't actually write it, someone else wrote it. He did write the script to Rose Red, but once again, it is about a house, kind of like the Winchester Mansion, all the lore behind that real world place, where the house just keeps on growing and growing. Again, I give it about 3 stars. Next up, we have Chattery Teeth. This is super fun, but it is super vapid. Also, it is literally about killer chattering teeth, the wind-up teeth, the little feet and everything. I enjoy the story for what it is, but I'm a much bigger fan of King in his literary stuff and not his genre stuff. And this whole collection is just packed full of genre stuff. But Chattery Teeth has a really cool ending, I thought. It was unexpected. The crash is what I'm talking about. Next up, we have Dedication, which is yet another twin. You can tie this one into Secret Window, Secret Garden, and The Dark Half. It's about a story or a book that is plagiarized right down to the dedication. I believe that's where and I'm doing all these off the top of my head, so if I get anything wrong, please let me know down there in the doobly-doo. If you want to compile all the wrong stuff that I say, then definitely put that down there, and I will pin your comment. I'm sure Pat will be down there. But yeah, so this one is another one that just 3 stars. I'm going to stop saying that now. I know there's a lot of people who hate it when I repeat myself, and this is going to be a long video anyways. So yeah, this is another one. Just 3 stars. Last time I'm saying it. All the rest of them, 3 stars. Anyways, actually, no, we got 2 1 stars, but I'll tell you when we get there. Next one is The Moving Finger. It's another story like not Monkey's Paw, the monkey, chattering teeth. It's just it's a creepy little thing, and it's not significantly, I'd say it's moderately creepy, but King does this with very everyday items. He'll take that item and try to make it terrifying. There's another story in here called Sneakers that he does the same thing with. A lot of these stories, like I've already mentioned, I'm repeating myself again anyways, like I've already mentioned, kind of tie into each other or could be considered to be all in the same world. Next up, we have Sneakers, which is, once again, it's right behind The Moving Finger. Sneakers is about a guy who finds a pair of sneakers, I think, in a bathroom stall. And as the story progresses, the sneakers are still there, but there'll be flies around it, dead flies, that kind of thing. And it ends up being, ends up being haunted. I don't want to go into any more detail. Again, this is another story that is midline for me. They got a hell of a band. This one really feels like Clive Barker's Son of Celluloid. I'm unsure which came first, but I'm pretty sure Barker's did. I could be wrong, but this is about, I believe it's a town that is completely populated by dead rock stars. It's a cool concept. I would have much rather seen this one be a full-fledged novel, though. Next up, we have Home Delivery, which is Night of the Comet, Night of the Comet meets Return of the Living Dead. It's one of King's only zombie stories. People call Pet Sematary a zombie story. It is not. I'm going to stick to my guns there because I love that book so much and I can't stand zombies. But another story that just doesn't do a whole lot for me. But it is what it is. It includes aliens along, so you can possibly tie this into the Tommyknockers and to Dreamcatcher as far as his alien sci-fi stories go. Next up we have Rainy Season, which is an exceedingly cool story, even though it goes on way too long in my opinion. It is about a town that has a very, very weird secret. If nothing else, I give this one 3 stars just for how unique it is, even though it's kind of a biblical story. Not really biblical in the sense that, there's dogma or doctrination or anything like that, but just what happens in the town is very specific. And very unique outside of the Bible. You just don't hear too many stories about this kind of event. And I don't want to ruin it for anybody who has not read the story, because these reviews are supposed to be spoiler-free. Sometimes I go a little more into detail because I need to do it for my review, but this one I'm going to keep it right there. Next one, My Pretty Pony. This one does almost nothing. This is another Dollar Baby story. It was made into a short film with Tobin Bell, and I can't remember the boy's name, but it's literally just like several minutes of 2 people talking. It goes into a lot more detail in the story, but again, middle of the road story for me. I hate that I don't like this collection more than I do, but yeah, it is what it is, man. Sorry, Right Number is fun. I actually did an adaptation of this story in my high school drama class. They said, pick whatever script you want, and I picked that one, and it was fun to do, but it is a very, very old trope, an overused trope about not a herald, but not a prediction either, but a call from the future, from the same person, one person calling themselves and warning them of a certain event, so on and so forth. It's okay. It's okay. I hate that I keep saying it's okay. Crouch End is probably the most recent adaptation. It's with Adrian Brody. I believe it's on Apple TV or something. I don't know. It's one of the services that I don't have. But it's Chapel Waith is the miniseries, and the story's Crouch End, about a person who travels to Crouch End and possibly into another dimension. It's a very spooky story, and the atmosphere is off the charts here. But again, it's one of those stories like it has one good piece of something, whether it be the character, the plot. In this one, I think it's the actual plot. And there's a lot of dread, but I don't care about the characters, and the pacing is pretty sluggish, as with all of the stories in this collection, except for Popsy and The Night Flyer. I was never bored with either one of those. Next up, The House on Maple Street. This is another unique, crazy, bizarre story from King, but again, the only thing that stands out for me is the ending. I thought that was interesting, but it's another story that just went on far too long for me. And I'm not one of these... Let me clarify something. I'm not one of these people who read a 1,000-page King book and say that it's overwritten, or that I would cut, 300 to 500 pages like so many other people, and that they can never give you examples of what they would want cut. They just think it went on too long. These are usually the same people who don't like character development and just want action, action, action. And King is not about action, action, action. But with this one, the build up to it, I don't think the ending was cool enough for all the build up to it, and I believe it's a relatively short story. No, never mind. It's 40 pages. That's why I feel the way I do. Next one, The Fifth Quarter, is a twinner for the story right after it. This one is a story from Dr. Watson's point of view, and it was in a Sherlock Holmes anthology, I believe. But yeah, I don't care anything about Sherlock Holmes, and I didn't care much for the story. Next up, I don't even have to look, is Umney's Last Case, which is another short story that has to deal with detective fiction. Another one that I don't care about. I own the little chapbook that they released. They also released Blue Rose, I think, by Peter Straub in the same edition. It was either Penguin... I think it was Penguin. It might have been Scribner, but this is a little chapbook, and I own that edition of the story. It's cool. I mean, I have no complaints, but it's just I'm not a big fan of detective fiction, and this one throws some supernatural business in there, and I thought that was probably the only good part of the story. But then again, I'm a huge fan of the supernatural. Next up, we have two that I'm going to do very quickly. Heads Up and Brooklyn August. I hate baseball. I hate it so much. Brooklyn August. Yeah, Brooklyn August, I believe they're both true stories. Maybe Heads Up. I know for a fact Brooklyn August is. And it talks about Owen, his youngest son, in Little League. So I just don't care about baseball, and these stories bore me. Anytime King writes about baseball, I just kind of zone out. Yeah, same with his poetry. But then there's the last one. Hang on, I'm going to have to look this up because it's not actually in the table and contents. It is a retelling of an old Hindu parable. Yeah. The Beggar and the Diamond. I'm going to read you the author's note here. This little story, a Hindu parable in its original form, was first told to me by Mr. Surendra Patel of Scarsdale, New York. I have adapted it freely and apologize to those who know it in its true form, where Lord Shiva and his wife Parvati are the major characters. It's a cool little story, but again, it's just not something that I would not that I wouldn't expect it from King. It's just something about each one of these stories, except for my two favorites, they just don't work for me. But yeah, so that is Nightmares and Dreamscapes by Stephen King. This absolute chunk of a book, 800-page collection. I'm wondering if we're going to get another big chunker of a collection, but I think all of his stuff is pretty much out there. So, if you have read this one, please let me know. If you disagree with me on any of these stories, put all that stuff down there in the doobly-doo. I don't mind hearing other people's opinion. You're not going to ruin the story for me. But yeah, this one, overall, I'm going to give it 3 stars because I have 2 5s, 2 1s, and then a bunch of 3s, so I'm going to average that down to 3. But until next time, I have been E, you have been you. This has been another Stephen King review. I'll talk to you guys later. Bye-bye.